Hey y'all, how are you all doing? I'm so excited to be coming to talk on this topic today. I was at work and I had a client that was asking about my daughter, and I often get times where clients ask me about her dad, and her dad is no longer living with us or living um, on this earth. He is deceased. And so people always ask me how I process that and, the story of how it happened. And I've always felt like I wanted to try to talk about this topic because um, it was really dramatic, but it was also the time where I went through a total transformation in my life from grieving. Not everyone looks at grieving or grief the same as I do. Like, I went through it, and every year was growing from it. Sometimes people get to where every year they choose to be sad on holidays and that person's birthday and the anniversary of their homegoing, and I'm just not one of those people. I want to always celebrate his life, because for me he was a big part of my life, and not just because of my daughter. I just think when me and him connected, it was energetic, and we never really found that right timing. I think when we were introduced to each other, the energy that we felt when being with each other, I always reference it to Hancock the movie, if you've ever seen it with Will Smith, how the longer the two of Will Smith and the gal on there were close to each other, it went from a a genuine love where you're just really connected, to then it would turn to toxic. And I don't want to say we were toxic, but there was a lot of tug of war with him wanting to be free and me wanting to latch on, not wanting to lose him. So that to me was the toxic part of the relationship. But I'll go ahead and reference how everything happened, and because I think sometimes people just think, um, oh well, they passed, but to me it was a lot deeper than that with me because of how it happened. There was a lot of um, shoulda, woulda, couldas that happened with me because he did leave my home before he passed. So February 14th, Valentine's Day, my daughter's dad, my daughter was 5. I rode past the car and I thought it was my daughter's dad, so I gave him a call and said, hey, I know you ain't riding around with a whole bunch of balloons and stuff in your car, and you ain't brought your daughter no Valentine's Day gift. And we started laughing, and he spoke to her while I was on the car phone. And so he spoke to her and was like, oh, I love you, baby, and all right, I'll see you later. And we said that, and so it was just a really good chat, and we went on about our day. And so later that night, I believe he was, well, no, I don't believe. I know he had explained to me that he was at a graduation party, and had gotten into a little altercation, but had walked from where he was at to my house. This is like 12:40 at night. And so when he comes, he's kicking at the door. And I knew he was kicking at the door because it wasn't a regular knock. And so I got up from the bed and I was like, "What? Why are you kicking at this door?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, babe. I'm sorry, babe. Man, I just got into it with these people. I just need to charge my phone." And so I was like, "Okay." Well, he was like, "Oh, because I told him, I was like, your daughter in here sleep? Like what?" He was like, "No, I'm sorry, babe. I'm sorry. I just need to charge my phone." And so he came in. Now, usually I would sit up and ask, be nosy, what happened, who was it? I was tired. So I went back to my room to lay down. And he came in, charged his phone for about a good 20 minutes. When he got up from the chair that where the charger was, I heard it kind of scrape across the wood floor. So I got up to come lock up the house, and he was at the door, standing in the doorway. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay, babe. Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay." I live on a corner lot, and so a car drove up the lot or the side street, and he bagged back in the house and pulled a gun on his waist. And so I was like, okay. At that point, he was scaring me. So I said, "Are you, no, really, are you okay?" And he was like, "Yeah, okay. I'm okay, babe. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. Are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I'm okay." I said, "But listen, I will take you wherever you want to go." At that point, he was scaring me. So any other time, I'd be like, "Okay, you need to get in here and lay down or something." But at that point, he was scaring me. So I knew he couldn't stay in the house. And so I turned back to my dining room to get ready to walk back to my room to go put on some clothes, because I'm getting ready to take him wherever he asked me to take him. When I turned back to the dining room, he shot out the door. And so I was like, okay, where'd he go? Ran to the door, shut the door, locked it. Well, on the other side of my house, which was not towards the street, the other side leading to the backyard, my security light was on, and it's really bright so I can see it. I had walked past the bathroom, and it's right over the bathroom window. And so I saw it on through the bathroom window. So I ran to my balcony to see if I could see why he went through the backyard, or if he was back there, see if I can see him, and he wasn't there. So at that point, it just was like a boulder sat in my stomach. Like the pit, it was like I was carrying this heavy boulder. And so it wasn't, I carried a child. It was just like heavy, and I couldn't describe it. So at that time, I had a good guy friend that worked overnight, and I called him up, and he wasn't on break yet, but then he called me back, and I said, something is going wrong. And I told him, first he kicked at the door, then the car drove by, and he was real paranoid, and he had just gotten into an altercation before he walked here. And so he was like, okay, I'm off at 6, I'll be there. And so I tried to lay down. It's like, so when he left out of the house, I called his phone at 1:14 a.m. He didn't answer. So I'm like, okay, well, he just left charging his phone, so it did ring. I know he got a charge. But he didn't answer. And so my guy friend was like, I'll be there. He got here probably 6:15, and he was like, you haven't been asleep, have you? And I was like, no, you don't feel what I feel. It just felt really heavy. I said, you do not feel what I feel. And so he was like, well, like, what did he look like? And I was like, it was just, he was paranoid. I said, but him kicking at the door, that was a lot. And so I just knew something was wrong. Well, we're watching now, and for me and my household, we watch Channel 7, KTV News religiously. For some reason, I must have been watching a show on Channel 6, and WOWT was on. I believe that's Channel 6. And we were watching the news, and I don't believe the volume was up, but he was sitting on one side of my sectional, I was sitting on the other side, and I just looked at the TV. It's 6 in the morning, and it said self-inflicted gunshot wound, and they show the ambulance transporting on the news. That's what the camera caught. Didn't see the persons or anything like that. And I said, I hope that's not my daughter's dad. He immediately looked at me and was like, why would you say that? And I kept telling him, this feeling that I have, you do not feel what I feel. So, pause for a second. The feeling that I had just let me know that people can really be connected energetically. So, that was that. He was like, okay, well, let me go get some sleep. I'm going to go home, and I'll call you later. So when he left out, it was probably closer to 7 then. 7 in the morning, and I hadn't been asleep, but I got on the line and called the first hospital I thought to call and asked, did they have a self-inflicted gunshot wound transferred to the ER there? And they were like, no. And then I said, well, were you guys at trauma center last night? And they were like, no. And so they said Creighton was one of the hospitals here. And I said, okay. And I hung up, called the trauma center, Creighton, called and said, hey, did you guys have a self-inflicted gunshot wound by the name of so-and-so and so-and-so last night? And they were like, no, we don't have that. And so I was like, okay, well, I can go to sleep. So I felt like I still was uneasy, but I was like, okay, he's not in the hospital. They didn't say, they said self-inflicted gunshot wound on the way, like being transported to the hospital. So in my mind, okay, that wasn't him. Go to sleep. So his cousin ends up calling me. Now me and his cousin are good friends, and we went to high school together, and that's how I met him. And we don't talk every day, but when we do, like, it's one of those people you pick up with, like, you never stop talking. And she called me, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning. And when she called me, she said, Ambi, are you sitting down? And I just immediately said, I knew it. I said, I knew it. And then, of course, all the waterwork come on, and she didn't have to tell me. I just knew. And so when she said, Ambi, are you sitting down? I knew. She was like, I'll be there. Hung up. She pulled up another friend we went to high school with. I don't know how she must have called her, because it was her cousin too. And my best friend's sister pulled up. I don't know how my best friend's sister knew. Everybody was just pulling up. And when she pulled up, like, I collapsed. I didn't know what happened. I just knew that was him. So apparently, my daughter's dad had been struggling with drugs because he was depressed. And so he had been dealing with using wet, drinking. He smoked, marijuana regularly. So, but when he started dealing with wet, I would see him one week and he would be up in weight, looking just healthy. The next week I see him, he had really dark bags up under his eyes, and looked like he dropped like 10 to 15 pounds. It was a noticeable difference, and he would just be pacing. And but sometimes when he would be up in weight, he would come over, because he started popping up on me frequently when probably 2 months before he had passed. He had started popping up a lot. He would never call and say he was coming. He would just start popping up. And that was fine for me. Like, you can pop up. Your daughter's here, and that's fine, because we work together. But there would be times, like on the weeks that he would look like he was healthy and stuff, he would come in. He would literally be on his knees, like he would be on his knees in front of me. And sometimes he'll be on his knees. Sometimes he'd lay on the couch, but some of the times he would just be on his knees, and he would put his head in my lap, and he would literally go to sleep. And I knew he was struggling, because he had lost a couple people a couple months before that, like 4 months before that. Some to gun violence, some to illness, and he was really struggling with that. So it would be days he would just come here, and I would just let him sleep. It would be days he comes, sometimes he cry, I just let him cry. I never pushed him away like that. And so when the cousin got here, she finally broke down what happened. And of course we got ready, and people go through, on this night that he decided to do the self-inflicted gunshot wound. I don't use the S word. I just don't like to use the word. Even when I explained it to my daughter, I explained it as a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I don't say the S word. Um, and I'm pretty sure you guys can figure that out on your own. But so that night, he also chose to do bath salt. And so that concoction, bath salt, I've worked at a drug rehabilitation center for youth, and then I've had some kids there that have done bath salt, and so sometimes I would have to look up what the drugs, like look up pamphlets for them to realize what the drugs did to their body. I print them off and give them to the students. This was very early on, right after I found out he had bath salt in his system, and I was at work and I had to print this up for a student. Completely lost it. The first thing was the thoughts of death, self harm, the S word, ideations, and so I was like, oh gosh, I can't look up, this drug, but I had to do it at work for a student. So, looked that up, and so he was really, really struggling and not in his right mind, and he had been struggling for months. So, and I knew it, and it was just even the week before. So my daughter's dad never really went to church, although he knew who God was. So Valentine's Day was on a Thursday that year. This is 2013. Valentine's Day was on a Thursday that year. The Sunday before that, so the Sunday of that week, he called me and he said, hey, I was at work, and I used to work at Route 21, so I was opening the store. And he called me and said, oh, I was hoping you can get me to church. And so I was like, oh, well, I'm at work. And so he was like, yeah, I know. I was just trying to get there. I know because he has he has older kids than my daughter. He was like, I know my kid's grandma will take me home. I just was trying to get there. And so I was like, oh, well, can you call and see if she can pick you up? And, and he was like, yeah, I believe she can. And so, and when we were on the phone, and he was just reiterating how, I just want you to know that I really love you and my daughter, and you may not hear me talk about how great she is because you don't know the people that I be around. And because we hadn't been together my daughter was 5. We hadn't been together since my daughter was like 2. And so he was like, you may not know the people that that I talked to her about, but I just want you to know that I do, and I love you. You do such a good job, and sometimes I do believe that I should do better, because I would always be like, you don't ever want to take the load off of me. And I realized that I'm one of those people that if I'm ever in weakness, you would never know it. And so I would always be like, you don't ever want to just help with the load. Why is that? He was like, I know you think sometimes I don't help you, but honestly, it's because in my head, you do have it all together, and I should have done more. He was just really apologizing and really expressing his love. This is literally 5 days before he passed. So in my head, I'm kind of like, did he know? Like, everything that I thought about was just like him always popping up beforehand, him popping up before he did it. Like I said, I called him at 1:14 a.m. He didn't answer. According to his sister, by 1:30, the police officer heard gunshots. Mind you, so when I say I was watching the news and it says self-inflicted gunshot wound, and I said, I hope that's not my daughter's dad, he was 1 block up and probably 5 blocks over from me. So when I talked to his sister, I said, I called him at 1:14, he didn't answer. She said by 1:30, they got shots, or there's a sensor, I guess, that the police have, and they can tell if shots are being fired in a specific area. The police officer pulled up, and he did that in front of the police officer. She said by 1:30 he was gone. And so for me, the process of healing that first year was really to 2013, because it happened basically, it would have been the 15th of February 2013. That first year was really, I cannot tell you, after his funeral in 2013, I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything of 2013. Like, and it's so wild to me that I don't remember anything past that. Well, probably past when Social Security called me, because there's certain things that happen. I'm like, why is Social Security calling me? Because I didn't even think that like, nothing in my head registered like death benefits. I was just really like, I was in a state of, I don't know if it was shock. I just felt like I was existing. Like, I knew I had to get up, try to keep a smile on my face for my daughter, which to me, let me talk about that real quick. Don't be strong for your kids. Show that you have emotions, including sadness, and that you struggle as well. Because I think that's one big thing to where I should have done better of actually expressing my emotions of dealing with the grief with her dad. Because my daughter would come in the room and I'd be like, hey, and she was younger. She was 5. She turned 6 in April, and I don't know if she registered that red eyes was crying, or I never. But I wish I would have cried more in front of her, because letting her know it was okay to actually process that grief through tears. So, but that 2013, I can literally. I remember 2012. I remember 2014, and I lost 6 people in 2014. Can remember all of that. I cannot remember after pretty much February of 2013. I cannot remember. Like, it's so wild to me, because I was literally in a state of, I believe, shock the whole rest of the year. So my mom is really deep rooted. She had us, even my dad had us in church, and I really leaned on God for comfort. And I just was like, God, you have to send me some type of comfort. I also think that's why by 2014, I was able to kind of process those deaths. And that was lost in 2014. I lost my niece Pooh, my best friend's baby, at 1 years old. No, take that back. I lost my aunt January 2nd of 2014. My niece Pooh, February 2014. My pawpaw on my dad's side, February 2014. One of my good childhood friends, who was like my sister, May of 2014. My best friend's mom, June of 2014. And my grandmother, September of 2014. So I will say, by my good childhood friend in May, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I don't know if I'm numb to death or what's happening, but it just was like, oh, we saw Roder's Funeral Home so much in 2014. Like, literally, I had pins. It was a lot. Like, every death in 2014, but probably 2 of them were processed at Roder. So I had a lot of, it was just a lot. So, but 2013, I don't know if I blanked it out, or I struggled, because when he left out, I didn't even want to come back to him. I didn't want to be in my house, because I know he left here last. And when he went through my backyard, the gate was open. I struggled with closing the gate for a long time. The people that came to cut the grass shut the gate, and I damn near had a conniption. Like, who did that? Like, it's so crazy how you start to process certain stuff, and you don't. When people say people keep people's rooms the same, I started to understand that. But so after 2014, I really ask God for comfort. You have to teach me how to process death. And so from 2014, when people say is to be absent in the body is to be present with the Lord, I really had to take that and understand that they are at a place where there is no more pain, there is no more struggling, and where they are at, and now this is through what I believe, where they are at is way better than what we process here on earth. Everybody goes through so much when we really can just lean into God to ask for and lay our burdens down and to ask for comfort, the comfort that we need. Because when it first happened, of course I was going through the woulda, shoulda, couldas, because a lot of people were like, well, you didn't notice anything and you didn't want him to just stay at your house. Yes, I did notice something, and that's why I was trying to get him from my house, because honestly, I believe if he would have stayed, he would have done it here. And so just because he was out of his, he was not in his right mind. And so I tell people that all the time, like, I couldn't do the shoulda, woulda, couldas, because that would have still, to this day, I still would have been processing that. I do know he was struggling, and I do feel like he is in a better place. And I sleep better at night knowing that I was making sure he was okay in our final moments. And it's so crazy that people say, how do you know somebody is with you when they pass? When I got to his casket, I kept saying, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. And it was like it just kept coming out. I kept saying, I'm okay, I'm okay. And it was like, that was our last conversation. And it was like, people say you'll see little signs, or your last conversation will come to mind when you are, it'll come to mind when you're at the funeral, or it's just little certain stuff I was looking up after he had passed. And that was just like the red robins and the butterflies and the dimes. Now, dimes, I see dimes a lot. After a while, this past month, it turned into quarters, which I ain't mad about. But I would see dimes everywhere. So, and I don't know, I can't say that's just necessarily from him, but, because I did have 6 people that also passed, but, well, 7, because 2011, I lost my aunt to breast cancer. So, there are many people that have passed in my life, of course. So I can't just say those dimes come from him, but me saying I'm okay, I knew that came from him. I also felt like him coming to see me before he left was to make sure I would be okay. But now the way that I have dealt with his death is to celebrate him, is to honor him, is to make sure that my daughter is, because my daughter is such a nerd like her dad. Like, my daughter has so much, she's also very sensitive like her dad. So I know that he is always with me. And so sometimes we go to the cemetery, and my daughter does too. My daughter's 15 now, so it's been 10 years. Well, it'll be 10 years when she turns 16, because she actually turned 6 2 months later. So, but sometimes we go to the cemetery. She struggles sometimes because she feels like, little girls shouldn't have to grow up without their dads. And so I try to instill in her, like, but you don't have to, because he's always with you. He is always watching over you. Like, you have so much, like, my daughter's body shape is like her dad. Not body shape, but like, it's certain things, like her hands are like her dad. It's so crazy. Like, she has so much of her dad. Like, it's ridiculous. So I just tell people all the time, I tell her all the time, like, your dad is always with you. I tell people all the time, listen, your people, when they pass on, they are always with you. Talk to them. So when I go to the cemetery, and I used to go a lot more often, I do make sure I go up there and clean his headstone and stuff. But I would just go and talk like he was literally still here. And that was the release for me. But I don't handle grief with sadness anymore. Like, I literally try to be like, let's celebrate him, because God gave him to us, me, his friends, his family, for 31 years. Like, I won't ever, I won't ever not be grateful to God for giving me him. So, process through the crying, but get back up. I'm telling you to get back up, because they are still watching over you. They still walk alongside you. Some of your strength will come from them. It's just there are some things that happen in my life, and I'm like, I just know that was somebody just watching over me. Like, so I process grief and honor them through joy. I honor him through joy. The energetic connection that me and him had was unmatched. I do know, because a lot of people are like, I don't really believe in soulmates. I do. There was one time we hugged each other, and I felt like a spark on my cheek, and we were outside and we were on concrete. I didn't have no static electricity going on. I had on a t-shirt, he had on a t-shirt, I had on blue jean shorts, he had blue jean shorts. And literally it was like we hugged, and it was like a energy, or a spark. What do you call it when you rub your feet on the carpet? Static. Like when people shock, it was a shock. It was a shock on my cheek, on our cheeks. That was like when we had first met. When we first met, it was like, I want to be with him all the time. Like, so I do know that was one of my soulmates. And I do believe you can have more than one. I do believe you can have a soulmate in I say my daughter it's like, my daughter is literally like one of my soulmates, because she has the mannerisms of her dad. She loves me so much like her dad did. And so she's one of my, like, thank you, God, for sending, making me her mom. So I just wanted to come in on and kind of share my story and just tell you guys how I really kind of process grief. Like, I don't go as far as to like releasing balloons and stuff like that, but I will, if I feel the need to talk to him, sometimes I'll just smile at my daughter and be like, look at boy. Because my daughter's dad was like real quirky, and like he'd make little witty comments, and I would like, he'd be like, girl, you didn't spit that baby out. I'm like, clearly I didn't. But people see her now, they like, oh, she looked just like you. But then when people used to see him, they used to be like, girl, that ain't your baby, that's his. Like, whatever. But so I still thank him to this day, and I try to not be sad and in sorrow because he is no longer here physically, because I really still feel that he is here spiritually. And so if you are struggling with any type of grieving or grief, I do challenge you to find the best way to cope with the grief. Because some people say it's like a wound that has the scab on it, but if you pick it too soon, it'll still bleed. And for me, I no longer have the scab that if you pick it'll bleed. If you pick it, that's new skin. Because I don't want to live like that. I don't want to choose to live in sadness. And so, and when in my heart, when people say mourn you till I join you, or I hope to see you again, I do. I really do. I want to go to heaven and see them again. So but I challenge you to find the best way to deal with your grief. If that is counseling, if that is releasing and then getting back up and literally feeling like you're being lifted up by them to get back up and keep going, do that. I am rooting for you, and I don't want to be on here too long. I've been trying to keep my videos to a minimum, but make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, and let me know how you have been handling any type of grief or sadness that you've been going through. Okay, y'all. I'll talk to you later. Bye.